This is the ZMAR Podcast. Elite Benefits of America helps small and mid-sized companies with their health insurance programs. And now, your host, Butch ZMAR.
All right, welcome back to the ZMAR Podcast. Today I have a guest, Allie Goodwin. We met on LinkedIn. Obviously, the world keeps getting smaller with social media. You work a lot in the same industry as we do, and I welcome you to the show.
Thanks so much, Butch.
Can you give us a little background on who you are and what you're doing over at TrueScripts?
For sure. So my technical title is Marketing Manager, although TrueScripts is a somewhat new company founded in 2014. A lot of our initial growth was very organic, grassroots. And so at the time, we were slow to bring on a true business development and marketing team. So when I came on with the title Marketing Manager, we had a pretty blank canvas. My role in the past 3 years has really grown to more of a business development capacity, growing those relationships, and then also just supporting our business development team. We are, TrueScripts is nationwide, so establishing that team and growing it significantly in the past 3 years has really given me a good opportunity to meet all kinds of people in this industry, work with everyone across my organization to learn all the ins and outs of this crazy, beautiful and ugly PBM space.
Some of our audience probably doesn't know what PBM is. Can you give us a little background story on it and
Sure.
what the industry does and what their purpose is for the workplace?
Right. So if anyone is familiar with a PBM or pharmacy benefits manager, kind of the industry standard does not have the greatest reputation. So PBMs kind of function as the middleman between plan sponsors, drug manufacturers, and pharmacies. So even though we're situated in the middle, the PBM really is working for the plan sponsor and the member. Those are the two people who are putting money into the system. So our duty then is to research, analyze, and then negotiate to lower prescription costs and ultimately maximize the effectiveness of the pharmacy benefits plan. So I like to think of it as, if a company were to hire a purchasing manager to negotiate purchases, control spending, and contain costs, a PBM's job is to act as another resource for cost containment, specifically in a company's RX expenditures, a number that is well on the rise, as everyone is unfortunately pretty familiar with.
With more and more people on prescription drugs these days, pharmaceutical world seems like they captured almost anything that they want. And so how does TrueScripts help control some of that cost for the employer and then the end user, right? The policyholder employees?
Sure. So we have some standard, I guess I'll say, pharmacy services that play into the cost containment, whether that is formulary management, where we're kind of doing the blocking and tackling of all those crazy outside forces of big pharma. So that's just staying up to date with the industry, looking at new drugs coming into the market, newer expiring patents, some of those what we call quote unquote dumb drugs. So Duexis is a very popular example of that, which is just ibuprofen and Pepcid AC. There's a lot of other examples there too. Diclofenac potassium versus sodium, which, over $1,000 difference there. So just monitoring those things. Pharmacy network management. A big thing with TrueScripts is that we are, but as much as I hate to say it, fully transparent, which for us really means removing any of those conflicts of interest that would prevent us or hinder us from making decisions that are in the best interest of the member and client. So even on the pharmacy network piece, TrueScripts does not own any pharmacies. So when we are working with a client, pharmacy network management can be used as a cost containment lever, or unfortunately can also be used as a way to generate revenue for the PBM and then unfortunately limit patient access to care. So everything that we do on the cost containment side is truly working towards lowest net cost. A big thing for us, our flagship program offering is our specialty care program. Specialty drugs drive the majority of plan spend, even though there's a low utilization among members. But those drugs, there's new ones to market all the time. They're growing and growing in cost. Mm-hmm. So that's really kind of our bread and butter and where we do things a lot differently. Our specialty care program is fully in-house. So it's a seamless program integrated with all other elements of the pharmacy benefits management ecosystem. So members are not needing to call out to another vendor who handles just the specialty drugs and having that kind of piecemeal solution. Everything is integrated under our roof. And so that just allows us to go over, again, that lowest net cost, whether that's PAP, copay cards, or international sourcing if the client has an appetite for that.
So there's a few things that stood out or a couple things that stood out when you were sharing that was TrueScripts doesn't own the pharmacy. There's a conflict of interest that occurs. And it seems that on the fully insured platforms, and so fully insured is the traditional markets where most employers traditionally have received their insurance benefits for their employees. A lot of them own their own, or they package some deal that's owned by somebody else where there could be a conflict of interest. Isn't that true?
That's true. And it doesn't even exist on the fully insured side. There's plenty of clients who can be self-insured and be with a traditional PBM who has that vertical integration going on.
Got it. You bring up a good point, because you could still pick a third-party vendor for the PBM, but they own the pharmacy as well. So we'll talk about the fully insured first, because I want to hit that, because there's a lot of large employers out there that still are fully insured, and they get limited data on claim experiences and how utilization is occurring. But on the fully insured, there's still a lot of things that are hidden from the employer, right? They can't see true costs. So can you share with our audience some of the items that are missed because they don't have access to the data that's there? What are some opportunities for improvement?
For sure. But you're hitting on it, the data. Yeah. Having access to that, it's your data. There are so many other aspects of running a company that you wouldn't or couldn't do blindly. So being able to have intel to your unique population and assessing those opportunities and threats within there, and then devising a unique and nimble plan that fits your unique population. It just makes sense. You have so much more insight where you can look at all of those elements of plan design and then craft them to include the networks, clinical programs, and so much more that can really give you such an advantage.
And on other podcasts that I record, I always talk about the CFO goes through line item list of all the expenses that are in the company. And the only thing that they kind of take a high road to is the employee benefit program. There's not enough data, but we've also been taught that we can't ask for it or it's not available. So therefore, we just get accustomed to not being available. So we just don't ask anymore. And so bringing that to the self-funded market where you can get a pharmacy benefit manager. And so a lot of them are brand names, right? Like these are comfort names that, put billboards up and they're usually like a big sign at the pharmacy. And so like how is that still a conflict of interest if they're a big brand?
Just because they're a bit, the big brands are typically even more so a conflict of interest. I don't know that their size or popularity dismiss them from any conflict of interest. I think maybe just because they are such a big, almost household name, people think, okay, well, if everyone else is doing this, it must be fine. It can't be that bad. And even, looking away, not necessarily just the fully insured market, but, the big three PBMs who have 75, 80+ % of market share, It's like, well, that many people can't be doing this wrong, right?
100%. You hit it right on the head. It's definitely household names, and then people get comfortable with it. The same thing with the fully insured market, where a lot of them go to the household names, and they're like, and you try to explain to them, that it's really about spreading risk, right, and controlling the cost, and then you're funding it, right, and so um, you have access to a network, even though the newer program, I wouldn't even call them newer. They've been going on for a long time. They eliminate the network, right? You can go anywhere you want on a provider side, and so like there's so many different ways you could help control the cost. You do it for your business, right? Who cares? You're not buying, Staples, paper brand, right? Like you're buying, some other one that's a lower cost, but it still prints from the printer. It still puts ink on the paper, and so it still works, right? And you're saving costs, but you don't see the cost to go into it. But now moving back to TrueScripts a little bit. So I know I've heard you in the industry, like TrueScripts in the industry. This is really our first engagement in Chicago. It seems like they're less TrueScripts, but we're going to change that. But one thing I noticed in picking up conversations with you and some of the marketing material and your website, which is done, it's a beautiful website and it's got a lot of information that people should go to, and I'll have that in the show notes. But there's definitely you really hit home, and it's important to you to translate is the core values. And the core values is important in TrueScript, and obviously it's instilled in you as a representative of the company. Can you walk us through like any background you have on the core values, how it came to the forefront, and then just give us a breakdown of what the core values are, so our audience and the employers are listening can understand where you guys are coming from.
Sure. This is the funnest and easiest part of anything TrueScripts or PBM related to talk about. The PBM industry is just so messy and complex, and they've made it that way for a reason. So when I get to talk about what makes us tick, that's the fun part. So our core value, and I guess, but let me back up just a bit. And I don't want to make this a TrueScripts commercial, but I think it's important for listeners to kind of understand our origins and why our values and mission mean so much to what we do. So our founder, Nathan Gabhart, was a pharmacist by profession, worked and had some ownership in an independent pharmacy, was behind the counter, saw these patients coming in, saw all the BS and the games that was going on with patients being able to not afford their medications, and just kind of being on the back end of that and seeing what was going on, how these pharmacy benefit managers were convoluting the system and manipulating it. And so he finally, said enough is enough and set out to create a PBM of his own and do things the right way. So our core values of integrity, respect, innovation, and service are really the foundation of that mission. And that mission now, the first line of our mission statement is to build lasting relationships. We can't build lasting relationships by capitalizing on the needs of others for our profit, which is what a lot of traditional PBMs are doing, which is awful.
And I agree with you 100%. And there was a recent podcast I did that talked about core values in the military and then how it's made me a better agent overall. But definitely, and I think it's interesting. And of course, you weren't the one that put it together. You're just kind of branding it, moving it forward, the mission of TrueScripts. But integrity is the first word. And I feel like, okay, front and center, integrity is the most important thing that you guys are focused on, which goes back to what we already talked about. The transparency of pricing, there's less or no or avoidance of conflict of interest, and things move in the right direction. Not for you, only for you, because you got to be in business, you got to make money, you have employees, the staff, and you have a product to serve. But then on the flip side is you have to make sure that the end users get in the best bang for the buck. They're able to utilize the product in an easy and efficient manner, and then not be price gouge or just save them money overall, especially in the healthcare space. And then one I think is kind of interesting is innovation, right? And can you walk us through a little bit deeper on the innovation side too, and that because I think this is key, especially because the pharmaceutical world seems like it's has a lot of control in what people do at the pharmacy, and so where's innovation going with pharmacies to give consumers and employees and their families just a better outlet in general on prescription drugs?
Innovation is huge. The pharmaceutical industry is so volatile. You really have to stay in front of things. So we have an innovation team. We actually call it our innoveering team. So similar to Walt Disney's Imagineering team, TrueScripts has the innoveering team who they just devise and implement new concepts or technology for our programs and services. So right now we are piloting a PGX program, so pharmacogenomics. And I think it's important to note that, anything that we put time and effort into implementing or bringing into our clinical workflows is never to check a box and just say, hey, we're offering this. We really need to dive in, understand how it brings true value to the client and to the member. So where PBMs sit as a middleman, we have the opportunity to play such a big role in helping to bridge gaps in patient care between their physician and their pharmacist. So it's unfortunate that a lot of PBMs don't harness this opportunity. So everything we do, cost savings is very important, but enhancing the clinical outcomes, of course, that ultimately plays into costs, but just leveling up the healthcare ecosystem and creating a better experience for the people that we serve is so important to us. So with, back to the pharmacogenomics, looking at how the study of how the patient's genetic makeup will affect their body's response to those medications, but then consistently following up on that. Just having an ongoing view of each medication they're taking, new medications, how that will affect them. So, just staying on top of things in that sense. And then going back to, we have a P&T committee, Pharmacy and Therapeutics Committee, who meets biweekly, just assessing industry trends. We have to stay on top of all of that. You have the kind of craze with the GLP-1 diabetes medications right now as a form of weight loss. This can be great. Members can see significant results there, but aside from specialty drugs, diabetic drugs are the number 2 cost driver for plan sponsors. And so if people are just running wild using these as weight loss medications, it can exponentially drive costs for plan sponsors. So it's just, when we say innovation, it can mean a lot of different things, but ultimately it's really staying on top of everything that's going on in all different facets of the pharmaceutical industry, whether that is on the legislative side or the manufacturer side and everything in between.
Hey gang, ever wonder what it's like to be a small business owner? It's confusing, weird expenses coming out of nowhere, and when you throw in health insurance, forget it. Nobody understands how that works. If you own a business, big or small, it's one of the biggest expenses you have all year long. And yet, we all wait until open enrollment at the end of the year, and then we think to ourselves, next year I'll get a jump on it. And then it's another year of paying way too much. If you're a business owner, big or small, HR representative that wants to impress the boss, give Butch Zemar of Elite Benefits of America a call. Save yourself or your boss thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars a year. Reach out to Butch right now, 708-535-3006, or shoot him an email, butch@elitebenefits.net. And be sure to check out the Zemar podcast. Don't wait till the last minute. Put Butch Zemar to work for you now.
So now, maybe from your perspective, you've been in with the company for a few years, maybe some of the things that TrueScript is sharing internally, at least, and I'm not asking you to divulge top secret stuff, but what are you seeing for future trends, right? Just as an industry as a whole, not necessarily TrueScripts, but what are you seeing as we move forward, as employers are trying to become more innovative, brokers are becoming more innovative, trying to control cost of healthcare? What are you seeing in the pharmaceutical world that's going to be changing in the horizons?
Biosimilars is a very hot topic as of late. There's a a lot going on there, a lot forthcoming, I'm sure. A lot of unknown, but we're riding that right out nonetheless. We've processed one of our first biosimilars recently, so I'm sure there's a lot more to come there. Just the ever-changing world of specialty drugs. I mean, that continues to be such an area of importance and focus for everyone. Brokers, plan sponsors, members, of course. When you're on those drugs, it can be a very scary situation. So there's a lot changing in the manufacturer's world as well there. So we'll just, continuing to evolve and stay on top of those things will, I think, always be an area of importance for us and our partners alike.
That's awesome. And I see more innovation as time comes on. Even Congress is pushing things down to try to make things a little bit better, not only for the workplace benefit programs, but even seniors, and then even juvenile. You had brought up diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is a huge thing, especially for parents, because they're paying for the cost of meds, and it's super expensive, and having innovation related to a lot of those medications, obviously, and then being on the forefront of medications for bigger diseases, heart disease and cancer, and try to make better outcomes is really the end there. And so I think this has definitely been great, and I think we'll have you back, because I think technology will change, and obviously innovation will change, and so we'll have you back on. And a lot of the relationships you develop are through the broker channel. So there's probably a couple companies that reach out, but if they wanted resources to find out, okay, what is TrueScripts? What are they trying to do? How can it benefit me? I'll provide the website in the show notes, but can you provide any more insight on how they get in touch with TrueScripts, or is it just through contact their broker and ask them to call TrueScripts?
Yeah, for clients, we do recommend that you reach out to your broker. We would love to meet them, work through them. It's likely that we may have an existing relationship with them. For brokers or clients who maybe just have questions, they can still reach out to us. We're happy to help in any way that we can. I know, but you'll provide some information there. My personal email is Alig, ALIG, @TrueScripts.com. And so if I don't have the answer, I know people who do, and I'm happy to connect where I can.
Yeah. Now, I was trying to figure out a way to bring this up just to end on a fun note. So on your LinkedIn profile, and I'll include your LinkedIn profile link in the show notes, so they can reach out to you directly for questions, or even brokers do listen to this podcast, so they can reach out to you directly as well. But you are a thesaurus enthusiast, and so I'm curious, like, what's the drive to be an enthusiast for cinnamon or words, right? And so and then what's the word of the day? Did it pop up yet?
So that it's open on my tabs right now. As I said, my title is marketing manager, so content development is a big piece of what I do. And just like earlier I said, as much as I hated to use the word transparency, it's like, what else can we say? What's not a marketing buzzword that people have heard over and over again? So yeah, thesource.com stays open on my web browser.
Yeah. So what is another word for transparency then?
Fully disclosed. It's not, I haven't come
not
up
a whole
with
lot
really satisfied that itch completely, but it's, I think important to just have those conversations and get people to understand what our definition of transparency. So even if the word makes you cringe and roll your eyes, maybe our definition is a little different. So hopefully
that's all right. Well, maybe it'll be contagious. I think there's going to be a lot more transparency in our industry. They need to, because there's a lot of things hitting, including broker compensation, to how claims are analyzed and paid out, and the list goes on. But I tell you, so the two of us are in the Midwest region, and spring is trying to come up. So the opposite of what we've had in the last couple of weeks is sun and warm weather, right? And so this has been great, Alig, and I will provide the contact information in the show notes, and I hope to have you back next time and bring us some more innovation and clarity onto PBMs.
It's been great, but hopefully we'll will some warm weather our way. And looking forward to talking to you again.